I wasn't exactly sure where to park as I came up, past the library, and I just parked across the street.
All right, everybody's here. We're going to start the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting today, April 20th. Happy 4/20. It's 5 p.m. Right? Is there any courtesy of the floor? No. Okay, it's fine. Discussion regarding Little Martin's Preserve. That would be Mr. Cope.
Good afternoon. So I'll lump all four of these.
Oh, the Little Martin's Preserve.
Both Little Martins, the Spangler and the Bodarchek, and these were introduced at the last council meeting as the land management leases. But just to give a very brief overview of what these are our three newest properties that have agricultural components to it. And these are the land management leases to have them farmed in a 5-year contract. So that's what those are.
So each one of these is a 5-year contract.
Correct.
The piece of land is the preserved, and the person leasing it is in parentheses, right?
Yes, and the reason that there's two for Little Martins is it's two different. It's actually 5 parcels and for one preserve, but the arrangement of land is slope. There's lower terrain and higher terrain, and the farmers that's on the higher one does the adjacent land to it.
Okay, great. Any questions, Mr. Lott?
The fee set on these, are they all the same?
No, there's Spangler is at 100, and that's our consistent prime ag farms. The others, I believe, are at 35, which are more of our land management, and the soil quality and the acreage is very minimal. So it's more of a help for us to maintain the property, but we still charge because they can get crop off of it.
Yeah, because they're profiting from it. Sure. So you don't charge a percentage of their product, you just charge flat fee
A flat tillable acre per acre.
per acre. All right?
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, moving on.
So before we, if I
Oh,
can.
yeah, sure.
Before we get to the presentation of the agroforestry program, on your agenda tonight for County Council, there's a resolution for the agroforestry. It should be the agroforestry program. It's to hire Luis Bugby, that's been running and developing our agroforestry program over the past 2 years. It's for an additional 2 years, a contract that will help her continue a lot of the efforts that getting in front of the national nut growers, getting funding through those foundations to help build, to create a repository in our parks, and really to keep momentum going, either by building collaboration with Lehigh and Lafayette, and we have our Lehigh students here. So that resolution tonight is what that is for. But I do want to present the Lehigh University students here today. We've been working for about a year now doing test plots. And I won't get into too much detail because they have a presentation to get in. And Linda, how do I get into this before? Okay. But in our parks, we're able to do this collaboration for environmental research, education, and such. And it's a great opportunity that we have both these colleges, universities in our back door that we're able to use our space in our park systems to look to manage these for possible new ordinance or new SALDO developments and things like that. So before I get any further, and I don't want to take it away from them, Ben and Luis, do you want to introduce yourselves and introduce your students? You can come up.
Well, hello, I'm Louise. Thanks for having us.
Can you
And-
step to the microphone?
Oh, okay. Thank you for having us, and I really appreciate the support that you've given us so far, especially on the conservatory that we're trying to establish. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer
anything about that. So we're, really lucky to be able to collaborate with the Lehigh students because they've done a tremendous amount of work over there. And, like Brian and I can come up with these ideas and, decide we're going to try out something new, but we really need to have a science-based assessment of what we're trying to do if we're ever going to be able to take that information to a developer or to a municipality and say, hey, think about doing it this way. An idea is one thing, but having good scientific information to present to them is what will make the difference. So what we have going on here is a 3-year project. They're going to present the first year of what we've done so far.
Great.
Can we get her name for Linda?
Louise Bugby. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ben Felser. I'm an associate professor at Lehigh University in Earth and Environmental Sciences, and I've been working with Professor Bob Booth and our 4 students over here, Tessa, Isabella, Esther, and Lauren, who have been working on a project. Well, they'll tell you the details of the project. And they've been doing this for credit at Lehigh as part of Earth and Environmental Sciences and Environmental Studies with both me and Professor Booth. So I think I'll let you provide the details of the study.
Yes. Could you make sure you give your name so we can write them down, please?
Yeah, perfect.
Sure.
Hello, my name is Esther Cisneros.
I'm Tessa Duggan.
I'm Isabella Jacobone.
I'm Lauren Haggerty. And today we are going to be sharing with you our project, Planting Mending Forests in Eastern Pennsylvania, specifically utilizing the Miyawaki method.
You can move the mic down if it's.
Okay, perfect, that works. Okay, so with this project, we had 3 main issues we wanted to address. The first one is the loss of natural forests in Eastern Pennsylvania. What we've noticed is that a lot of farmers are losing their land to major corporations or being bought out. And these corporations are coming in and planting warehouses that are not only destroying the farmland, but the neighboring forests that are still standing, dividing them. And so with that, with these warehouses, the second issue we wanted to address is the idea of traditional landscaping. These warehouses may plant oriental grass, a blue spruce there, a red maple there, kind of add some natural elements. But what they do not realize, besides the fact that they have to maintain this land and use all those resources, is they could also be introducing non-native species as well. And with that, the third issue we wanted to address is we wanted to seek some better and efficient reforestation methods that could possibly work with the warehouses surrounding those areas, like either to block them or to even just add some natural forests back into the area. And so with that, what is the Miyawaki method, the method we are using for our project? So the Miyawaki method was founded by Japanese botanist Akira Miyawaki. He wanted to restore degraded land. And so the method and the results of this is he would plant species at high density levels. So a traditional plot may only plot like up to 1,000 plants. The Miyawaki method can plant up to 25,000 plants. And the way he would select the plants is based on their specific traits and their native traits. So making sure that these plants would eventually be able to grow into a healthy forest. And these plants, because they're planted at such high density, would grow either 10 times faster and grow into self-sustaining forests. So you just let them be. And with this, like major cities in India have utilized this method in small spaces. That's why we think that it could work like in corners of warehouses where they're traditionally landscaping with one blue spruce and one red maple.
So we had 4 main questions guiding our project. Our first one was, are the principles of the Miyawaki method an effective and efficient planting technique for nut and fruit-bearing agroforests on small scales? So we wanted this project not only to have the benefits of biodiversity, but we wanted it to be productive. So we wanted it to have nuts, fruits, and seeds for both human and animal consumption. Our second question was, are agroforests planted using the principles of the Miyawaki method a practical alternative to traditional landscaping methods? So we wanted to know if they were cost effective, if they were easy to replicate. We know a lot of developers don't want to put a lot of time and money into these projects, so we wanted something that was easy and replicable. Our third question was, are ecosystem services a what ecosystem services does a Miyawaki-style forest provide in comparison to traditional landscaping or in comparison to only letting secondary succession take place? So we wanted to see if there was a change in biodiversity by planting this native tree system versus just doing the traditional sparsely planted agriculture. And our fourth question, our final question, is does planting seeds versus seedlings or saplings have any effect on the composition and ecosystem services of an eventual mini forest? And can you get to this forest faster? So we wanted it to be cost effective, and we didn't want to have to use heavy machinery. So we had an alternative, which was our seed ball planting. Planting seeds versus saplings is a lot less is a lot more cost efficient because you're not paying for the sapling, which can be pricey. You're only paying for the seeds. So we also tested that, and we did a cost benefit analysis on that as well. So this is our experimental setup. We had an abandoned agricultural plot, so it was a cornfield at the Wayne Grube Memorial Park in Northampton County. We had 4 10 by 10 meter plots. This is plot 1, our traditional landscaping plot. This is what industry would normally use around a factory, where we planted a single blue spruce and 1 red maple with ornamental grass. All of these plots were treated with herbicide to remove any of the plants and seeds that were previously there. And then we also put compost, about 4 inches of compost on our plots 1 through 3 to give nutrients to the plants. So our first plot was the blue spruce and the red maple, so very low density planting. Our second plot was our Miyawaki-inspired sapling plot. So we had 11 species of saplings planted in high density, which is about 2 species per square meter. Very high density compared to the other plots. And then these were also in predetermined locations. So we put a grid and decided exactly where each species would go based on their characteristics. We also put 4 inches of compost before planting this as well. And then our Miyawaki-inspired seed ball plot, it's the same distribution as the sapling plot, except we're just using the seed balls instead. So each seed ball would have 2 to 5 seeds per ball, and each one is composed of rodent repellent, cat litter, clay, and potting soil, which I'll discuss more later, with 1 species per ball. And then our final plot is plot 4, which is our natural succession plot. This is kind of our control plot because we wanted to see what would happen to the land before any treatment. So we treated it with herbicide and then just let it hang out, and we're going to see what will come after without any additional elements. These are our seed balls. You can see they're all different color coded based on which ones they are. So we realized that seeds cost a lot less than saplings. Saplings can get expensive. So we decided to make seed balls, which are protected from rodents and encourage germination, because we know that rodents eat seeds, which is a big problem, and we didn't want our project to be eaten. So Louise came up with this recipe that was made of cat litter, clay, soil, and natural rodent repellent, so the rodents wouldn't eat our project. So this combination of ingredients allows water to penetrate the ball while also encouraging growth and protecting from the rodents. The only issue with this is that it takes a long time to germinate, and then once they germinate, they're still at risk for being eaten by predators or herbivores.
So is this a proprietary blend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just asking.
Well, we'll see how well they do.
So as we mentioned earlier, we selected 11 species. This is the first half of our final species list. We started out with a major inventory of common native plants around this region and narrowed it down based on characteristics such as their compatibility with other native species, their tolerance to kind of water and drought, if they're nitrogen fixing, and if they pose, if they're appealing to things such as deer and other species which would kind of ruin our project. And this is the other half of our species list that we finalized on. We then also wanted to focus a lot of our species on having edible benefits, so like nuts, fruits, something like that people can kind of eventually go to and get food from. As we said earlier, we created a distribution schematic for our plots based off kind of the arrangement or that we had talked about earlier. So for example, as you can see here, hickory is in the 4 corners of the central plot, and we did that because they are both the largest species which we planted, but they also produce hickory nuts, which are very appealing to deer, so we didn't really want them at the perimeter. However, species such as spicebush and currants are very deer resistant and will keep the deer out of the central plot, and we put those at the perimeter.
So
So before we planted anything, before we laid compost, we took soil samples and sent them up to Penn State University so they could do soil analyses. We took note of things like pH of each of the plots and essential nutrients so that we could gauge them if they were optimum, less optimum. This gave us a baseline of the soil health of each of the plots so that we can compare to over time. We also made a graph of the carbon and nitrogen ratio in each of the 4 plots. This is also a baseline data set that we can compare to over time as more soil analyses take place as the project progresses, so that we can gauge the ecological health of each of the plots and compare our Miyawaki plots with the industrial park landscaping plots and see if soil health has improved.
Paul Zdankowicz is from Lafayette College. He is he's a senior. So he began this project working with Hock-Sing Liu. She's the professor of economics at Lafayette. So Paul's job was to assemble all of this information and come up with a cost-benefit analysis of a traditional planting versus a Miyawaki plot. And so because it's the first year, we have to go back and assess how well everything did, how much they're growing. And then we'll also have to wait until they grow for a season so that Ben and his students can come back and measure the differences in soil respiration and carbon sequestration and all of that. But Paul did develop a really nice spreadsheet for us to use with all of the the formulas in the Excel sheet so that we can just plug in these numbers and eventually it will spit out the difference between a traditional planting and a Miyawaki style. And what this will show over time is not only the value of the ecological benefits, calculated in, for water quality, air quality, what it's helping the soil, but also the cost of not having to go in and mow this thing every 2 weeks all summer long, because what you will have essentially is a forest strip around the warehouses or wherever you're planting them that can just be a self-sustaining thing. So, maybe you'll have a strip to keep things neat and clean, but just beyond that strip, you're going to have a good forest that's all full of food for people and animals and plants and insects. And so we can't really give you a good analysis of that just yet. We'll have to come back in 2 years with that.
Okay. Great.
And here's a screenshot of the Excel sheet that he made with all the formulas put in so that we can put in our data and it'll spit out a product. So some challenges that arise with this project is sapling consumption by ruminant grazers like deer. They see these plots as a 5-course meal. And that's an issue because if we don't have any saplings, no trees, then we have no project. So a way that we mitigated this was by spreading brush around the perimeter of the Miyawaki plots. This was more affordable and accessible than deer fencing. And we also chose species that tend to have less deer like a little less. Another issue that we might run into is rodents consuming our seeds, either through the seed balls or once they germinate. A way that we mitigated this was to add a natural repellent to each of the seed balls. And hopefully the intention is that once they germinate, the rodent repellent in the seed balls will remain in the soil. And one last challenge that we considered in our project was the contamination of plots from pre-existing seeds. The seed banks that are in the soils, will they grow different plants? Will this contaminate our research? Things like that. A way that we mitigated this was spraying with an herbicide, each of the plots with an herbicide to kill off any residual plants, seeds, and things like that.
And so to reiterate very quickly, our next steps for next semester and for the coming 2 years, we plan on going in the fall and the following fall semesters to go collect data on tree height, on whether or not new species have invaded certain areas of the plots, on whether any trees have died. We also installed trail cameras to observe the wildlife, and it's important to observe the wildlife to see which wildlife are going to which plot in particular, if deer are eating our trees, observing which trees are going to. And so those are the steps for next fall, is to collect that data so that we can finally begin to fill out the spreadsheet and have baseline data besides the zeros that we have in the spreadsheet. So yeah.
Great.
And then this is us composting, spreading our compost and planting trees. Very exciting day. And then this is the student team.
Nice.
and acknowledgements.
So it sounds like this is very much a partnership between yourselves, Penn State, Lafayette, and the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's great. Because I was going to ask, why isn't like Lafayette or Moravian or NCC involved in this at all? But it seems like you do have a lot of partners. This seems like a great program. And how many years will this study go on?
About 3 years.
Oh, okay, so you're all sophomores? Or will it be
It will
transferred
be,
to other students?
yeah, different students will be taking
Okay.
part.
Okay, so next year we'll get a report from 4 other students? Okay, spreading the wealth.
Maybe. We'll see.
More students. Okay, very good. Any questions? I know I was really excited when they presented the agroforestry in Louise Moore Park last year. It's like the first steps into having a food forest and to really utilizing that land in a very different way than just recreational, and I think that's really exciting. So this presentation of agroforestry, this was the presentation, but there is something on the agenda for tonight's meeting that has to do with this. Did you want to talk about that, Brian? Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you and all your work.
This is going to be passed on from another class, from year to year?
That's what they just said, yep.
So the resolution is for Louise to continue her work with us to build these collaborative partnerships, and also really look at that Hershey Nursery and maintain that, build off of that, look in our other parks. As we develop those through trails or reforestation or things like that, she's the expert in this. She has the contacts, and she's been able to really do a lot. She's actually going to be at the We Can Serve PA conference next week and presenting this to all of Pennsylvania. So it's a great collaborative. And I believe if you didn't have it, you should have copies of the National Nut Growers Association. She just gave it to me, and I just gave it to, right. And brand new article that came out, about 4 or 5 pages of what we're doing here in Northampton County and how this is working. So it's great to get it out nationally and show what we're doing is really cutting edge.
Yeah, this is very innovative, and I don't know of any other counties that are really doing this.
I don't.
I don't know.
No, so I think that that's great that this is here and we're pursuing this. Mr. Gafferty, you look perplexed. You have this look on your face. Are you, oh, okay. I thought maybe you had a question. Very good. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, can we move this forward then, right? Yep, there we go. Excellent. Now the discussion regarding Two Rivers Trail Gap 9A construction.
Sure. So many of you know, we've been working on this trail for many, many years. It's one of the top 10 gaps from 2013 when LVPC put the whole Lehigh Valley Trail Gap analysis together. Dating back to 2005, the first Two Rivers Greenway initiative or implementation plan was really to look at the connection between downtown East and the DNL Trail and to connect it to the Appalachian Trail. From that is really how Lehigh Valley Greenways started, of the collaboration of recreation and conservation initiatives, groups, organizations. But this around the Bushkill was really the impetus for the state to build out the rest of their conservation landscapes, to show the partnerships building, bringing in education and collaboration. So with that, there was an update in 2009 as some of that trail kind of started to get built. We wanted to look a little bit more in depth of closing some of those gaps out. And then once again in 2013, LVPC put together their top 10 list, and we're still working on probably a good amount of these to close out. And there's a reason why they're sitting 10 years in place for trail gaps, environmental funding, and a whole host of other things. So back in 2015, The county put out an RFP for design, engineering, and permitting for about 2 miles of trail that would connect the Stockertown and Plainfield section of trail right at 191 up to the southern end of Jacobsburg State Park. Our original alignment got shifted due to private landowners, a new collaboration with PennDOT that was really a pilot program that we started with, and I'll touch on that a little bit. But we also bought 1.4 acres from Norfolk Southern that was really the central location to build this trail connection to the Stockertown and Plainfield Township trails and have that connection go up to the Jacobsburg State Park. And then just, it seems like last year, but in May of 2021, we had the Garrity easement that allowed us to fully connect the Norfolk Southern purchase to the right-of-way of Route 33 to get that property owner and that established trail alignment done. So we have all trail alignment complete in-house, or I'm sorry, under agreement or ownership, either a public or a PennDOT or easement through the county, township, or state to get this alignment up to Jacobsburg as of now. So I mentioned the route change. The original one had it going from the 191 area of Stockertown and Plainfield Township Trail under the 33 bridge into what used to be Hercules. Now it's Bootsy Unisem's property, and running fully up on the west side of the, pretty much along the stream, crossing Filetown Road and then getting up to Henry Road up at Jacobsburg. We ran into some landowner, mostly environmental issues. The stream with flooding kept moving a little bit. We would have had to put about 3 different pedestrian bridges in this section. It just didn't seem feasible. Once again, we were hitting a roadblock for why these are those trail gaps. So we started talking with our engineers. We started talking with PennDOT. They did one project like this down in Bucks County where there was an existing road and they put a trail next to it as they were building the extension of the road. But what we did here in a limited access highway as Route 33 pretty much rewrote the book on how to do these types of collaborative projects. So what we were able to do with limited access highway, you're not allowed to put any kind of pedestrian trail or bicycle or anything in that right of way. We were able to carve out roughly 20 to 25 feet from the property boundary and move the limited access highway in. So now we have a alignment that this trail can flow through. We had to go through different trail agreements. It went through central office. It went through PennDOT or District 5. Year and a half later, we finally got, we think, all of the amendments done. And we did finish all of that permitting, all of the trail maintenance agreements with the township, with PennDOT, from Filetown Road up to Henry Road. All MPDS, all environmental, everything is ready to go on that section. About a year and a half ago now, we were awarded $654,000 from Lehigh Valley Transportation Study through the PennDOT Transportation Set-Aside Program. Last year, we were awarded a matching grant for that $654,000 through DCNR. These matches don't come lightly. They are highly valued throughout the state for these types of trail projects, especially this type of funding. Right now, we have the funding to do the whole 2 miles. Now, we still need to do some construction or some engineering on the southern side of Filetown Road to get down to the Stockertown Trail. With the Garrity easement, we need to do the realignment of the engineering of that and amend the NPDS permit through that section. It actually gets us out of some wetland area. But this section for tonight is the Bushkill Township section. Bushkill Township's Public Works have built the trail going from Jacobsburg north to 191, the Bushkill Township Trail. You probably have seen it or used it. They've done other innovative projects with using French drain technology under roads or trails to alleviate stormwater management techniques because, once again, we only have a 20 to 25 foot right of way. So we have to put all of that stormwater management in that right of way, build the trail, and have the safety features of fencing and any other culverts that would go over any of the existing spillways coming out of Route 33. So what we're looking at is using the TASA funds that we have in place to purchase through Sourcewell or CoStar's the materials to build the trail from Filetown Road up to Henry Road and have that connect into Jacobsburg. That would go in the Bolton Historic parking area where there's a trailhead there in Jacobsburg. The southern portion of this trail, right along Filetown Road, Bushkill Township owns about 6 or 7 acres. They're putting a trailhead location in there. So we have 2 trailheads located top and end. The same will happen for the southern portion when we connect to this Filetown Road down to the Sullivan Trail and Sullivan Trail area, the Plainfield Township Stockertown Trail. So what the resolution for is tonight is to use our Act 13 Marcellus Shale money, which we can use for regional trails. We can use it for flood mitigation, park development, preservation. We're looking at using up to $100,000 to have the township build this section of trail. They have the trail maintenance agreement with PennDOT in this right-of-way section. They've built trails. So we're really refunding them to build this trail that they're gonna have the long-term maintenance in anyway. That's what the resolution's for. So it's been a great partnership working with this township, with Bushkill Township. Their public works is phenomenal. They got a great crew that does a lot of good projects. And that's where we are for this section. We'll be getting out engineering design on that southern section. And with the remaining TASA funds and remaining DCNR funds, we hope to have that completed in the next year, year and a half, 2 years, depending on permits and things like that.
And you said that agreement with PennDOT is with Bushkill Township?
So we have to do a trail maintenance agreement on the PennDOT right-of-way section. Within any PennDOT right-of-way, they require a trail maintenance agreement throughout the state. So there's a shared use agreement for any crossings, and then there's a trail maintenance agreement. Bushkill Township has a trail maintenance agreement on this section for within their township, this western side of 33, Filetown to Henry Road. They've already completed all of that. We'll have to do the same for us. We're gonna have the southern section of it because we own that Norfolk Southern. We own the Garrity easement. It'll make it easier for us to maintain and do all the permitting and regulations through that.
Okay, great. Funny, I was just talking about this. Somebody brought this up yesterday at NAC, and they were talking about biking, bike trails and connecting everything. They were really excited for the potential of it to go to Jacobsburg Park, which is always exciting. Any comments? No. Mr. Lott.
You got PennDOT to move the right-of-way 20 feet? How did that work?
We didn't move the right-of-way. So there's 2 right-of-ways within this limited access highway, which is designated for Route 33 as a designated limited access highway. It's federal. The property boundary is the right-of-way for the property. They have a limited access highway right-of-way as well. We were able to shrink the limited access right-of-way from the property right-of-way that alleviates that.
You can't do that.
Right, so it allows us to be in an area that doesn't have the restrictions of a limited access highway.
So you got PennDOT to shrink their limited access right-of-way on 33. That's pretty impressive.
Well, it goes back to, I mean, even the last administration, they had a PennDOT Connect program. There was a lot of Cindy Dunn and I believe Leslie Richards was the 2 secretaries for DCNR and PennDOT at the time. They were doing a lot of innovative and a lot of collaborative work between PennDOT and DCNR. DCNR always funds these trails. PennDOT has the programs and the federal funds to do it. They were talking a lot. We kind of pushed this idea up and they really got behind it. They were able to figure out the legal aspects of it and how to make all of this happen. So yeah, we came up with a great idea and that's where we're at.
Great. Okay, so this is on the agenda tonight. and
Yes.
We just need to perfunctory, move it up. Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any other comments? Brian, you good?
I'm good. Yeah, I know you have other things on the agenda.
Not so much, but that's okay.
Okay.
We really thought we did, but
I can just give you a quick update on, we have construction up at Mincy right now that's undergoing, the recreational rehab projects, the walkways. Restrooms should come in around the first or second week of May. The colonial bathroom at Louise Moore Park has been demolished. We should have that arrive the first week of May, or around May 8th. All of that's going. The tennis courts at Louise Moore will be resurfaced. One of the Court A will be turned into the 6 pickleball courts. We're still looking around June 11th, June 12th for that, but we'll have to close Court A down about a month before. So maybe late April, early May. They have to take the new concrete mixture that they do for the netting poles have to set for a month before they can put the new resurfacing on. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on in our parks and everything's blooming. So take some allergy pills and go take a nice walk.
I know, the allergies are excruciating this year, I just have to say.
Well, actually, one more thing, along with the student work that we're doing here, it kind of goes off some of the other things. We just had Envirothon at Louise Moore Park
I was gonna
today.
ask you about that.
Right, and I don't know who went. I had to leave early, so
That's what I was gonna ask you.
I can't. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I can't
I know
break the
when
ice
I
or anything.
left, Bangor Maroon and Freedom Black were in the,
Okay.
in the lead. Whether or not they're still, or they want, who
Right.
won is.
But I mean, that's an example of what we're trying to do in our parks and use our space for environmental education, not just signage and things like that. Over at Wayne Grube, we have Caddy High School that comes over. Their gym class uses our trails for walking. They have their environmental education group is doing a Bluebird project, second year now, where they're monitoring it. And that's a part of our whole system that we're doing throughout our parks. So we're trying to integrate ourselves as much as possible. And if any of you have any ideas or contacts, we'd be more than willing and more than happy to look at that and how we can integrate those education opportunities into our park system as well.
I just have 2 questions. I wanted to follow up on the sign issue being moved at that park place.
Yes. My understanding is the landowner or the homeowner has agreed to leave it there with planting. That's the latest that I've heard, and that was within the last few days.
Really?
Yes. So the nonprofit organization that's been helping us has kind of come under an agreement with the landowner, and they're working it out to do some plantings. It's a great sign. We'd hate to move it.
Yeah, I know, I saw the sign. I
But to
don't think
buffer it for his site, we're working with him as much as possible. And from what I heard and understand is that they're working it out. So if we don't have to move it right now,
that would be great, yeah,
Yes.
sure. I just wanted to follow up on that. And then the other thing is, I was just at the Southside Civic Center, and people brought up a pedestrian bridge in Glendon going across the river. They said that and I think they said that they talked to Mr. Myers about this as well, a pedestrian bridge in Easton linking over the river. Yeah. Yeah, from what I understand, the bridge is county-owned, but what they had indicated was that it would take a massive crane to remove the bridge and then put a pedestrian bridge there.
I know what bridge you're talking about. There's a lot of issues surrounding it. The main one is the Norfolk Southern that it goes over.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I know that bridge has had its things for years to come, but I know the county has taken steps to help fix the main connection over the Lehigh to get to Hugh Moore Park.
right.
We funded, I believe, restoration efforts, and I know the city of Easton's actually looking at a new bridge connection that we helped fund a study for just south of 611 that would connect the DNL really into downtown more safely.
Okay. Yeah, because I just wanted to follow up on that because somebody had asked me a question about it, and I told them I'd get back to them. So there's going to be another bridge way down the way.
Possibly. It's the same kind of feasibility study that the city of Bethlehem's doing to look at that connection from really like Arts Quest area to connect
That's really the
to.
city of Easton conducting that study.
Yes, we
Yes.
helped fund it through one of our livable landscapes, but the city's, it's their project that they're working with.
Okay. Great. Anybody else have any questions? for Mr. Cope? No? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate everything you do. So we are going to table the presentation from Grant and Eisenhofer today, even though that was PFAS. I know that some of you got to meet Mark Weinberg. He is representing Grant and Eisenhofer, and potentially he might be working with other community members on PFAS litigation. It's my understanding that PFAS litigation will be discussed tonight at our council meeting, or at least in executive session for now. I did want to extend courtesy of the floor to anybody here who wanted to discuss the Nazareth Borough Waste Authority. And I see that you have a bulletin board.
I was here in preparation for Nazareth Borough to be here, so I was gonna, yeah.
You can, we would appreciate an update. I know that here I have, I know that the Nazareth Borough Municipal Authority Waste Treatment Plant was, their docket was commented on by the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. And while some of their comments were, at least one of them was good, was that they support the replacement of chlorine disinfectant with the ultraviolet disinfection. They said that change is a big improvement. They had pages of dissent. The first of which was the discharge in the Lower Nazareth Township with the treated effluent to the Shonek Creek, Bushkill Creek, Delaware Creek. It's located in the drainage area of the Lower Delaware. They had several comments about that. They also recommended that the DRBC impose stricter parameter limits for the effluent pollutants, the phosphorus, and also they talked about PFAS and PFOAs, in that the waste that is being discharged, it leads to PFAS exposure. I think this is one of the things that we're really concerned about in terms of spreading sludge or biosolids on a piece of preserved property. And we are pursuing this not only in Nazareth Borough, hopefully Mark will be able to give some guidance towards you, but also in Palmer, where the origins of the pollution start. And I think it's coming to a head now where we realize in the state that PFAS and PFOAs, the only way that we're really going to be able to get rid of them is to hold DuPont and 3M and the people creating these chemicals accountable. And I think that is what we're moving towards as well. I know that Millie gave me several documents that were never actually introduced at the state level, but showed some promise. If anybody wants to comment on any of that, you're more than welcome.
I was here last month.
Sure.
Megan, Yuliana, and just real quick, I said a lot of what I needed to say last month, but I do think that it's important to know that the farmer that currently farms this property, I spoke with him directly.
And who is that farmer?
Jake Klein. And I think
Can
it's.
you please state your, she did, she said Megan, Juliana, yeah, thank you.
You know, he has said that he refuses to spread the sludge for them if they are able to get to that point because of the controversy around this, because of the homes that are going to be affected, because of the park, because of the farmer fairground, because of the waterway. He recognizes the controversy that's around this. And his family does own a local farm in the area. That being said, he is a proponent of biosolids, sludge. He does feel as though his crops do really well growing in it. But what he also said to me was that if he had to live by it, he would absolutely have questions and concerns. And that's a quote. He said that he would have questions and concerns, which we all do. You know, as much as Nazareth Sewer Authority wants to say we're doing this, that, and the other, at the end of the day, unless they're putting this farm in an absolute bubble, there is absolutely nothing they can do to protect human beings. They will say, you know, oh, farmers are gonna get great crops from this stuff, you know, the phosphorus and the nitrogen, it's wonderful, blah, 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 with that complete disregard for how it affects the humans, the nature, the waterways, animals, plants, all of that. So that's really all I have to say this time.
So I have a question for you. Is the farmer within his right to deny the spread of sludge?
Yes, yes.
So he's leasing
gonna
the
still,
farm?
he actually, our understanding is, he's able to farm it for free. He is, because it's preserved farm, it has to be farmed.
Right.
So, you know, he spread the sludge for them in Palmer for a period of time. But now, knowing that this is in his backyard, he is not going to do that, but he will continue to grow crops in it. He's just not going to make it easy for them in terms of getting the sludge spread. So they'd still, as far as we know, they still need someone to come in and spread it.
Right. Could they remove him as the lease agreement?
Yeah,
And
they
replace him
absolutely
with
could.
somebody who, so they could? Yeah, because it's within normal farming operations, it's Pennsylvania law, and it's really difficult to work within that definition and think how we're going to do this. But is there any baseline testing that has been taken on the soil to determine what its composition is now?
Yes, our Material Matters did do a baseline test on the
Okay.
soil. So I don't know if we ever, did anyone do a FOIA on that? I don't think we did.
I
You
think
know,
I actually have that document. But,
Yeah.
to make sure that when they come in, I think one of the things to discuss, and when it comes to the point of trying to work with the Nazareth Waste Authority, Nazareth Borough Waste Authority, would be to require a certain annual testing or quarterly testing or something like that to determine whether or not the chemicals are accumulating.
they did tell us that they don't test for PFAS at all. They are just testing for what's good for
nitrogen
farming.
and-
Yeah. Yep, they are not testing for PFAS. And I don't know with the new laws that are coming out, if they're gonna, in terms of water, if they're gonna be required to do that. But they did say that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, the regulations on PFAS and PFOS are,
Yeah.
you know, the statewide, they're making changes. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you very much. Yeah, Megan, I had come to county council many times and spoke when this started back December of 2020, December 2021. Megan and I live adjacent to this property along with many others. My name is Millie Bean. I'm sure you probably remember. I've talked to Tara Zarinsky many, many times regarding this property because of Nazareth Borough Sewer Authority buying the land in Plainfield Township. And some of the confusion is, I listened to last month's tape, or, you know, the recording. Very, very interesting. I thought Megan did a great job, but there's a little bit of misinformation as far as how it's handled, because Plainfield Township, we don't have it, you know, we can go to their meetings in Nazareth, but they didn't really want us after the first, we really gave them a rough time. We went in there, guns blazing, told them about what they were doing, coming to Plainfield, thinking they can buy this farm. Well, they did. They bought it. They have a right to buy it and pay whatever they want for it, way over market price, and then think that they're going to spread their Class B biosolids on this farm. The weird part is, I think they thought by the end of, or beginning of 2022, end of 2022, they'd be ready to go, have all their permits, do whatever they're going to do. But they're trying to make it themselves sound like they're following all the different things that they make it just perfect. Everything's wonderful. Well, there's regulations. They have to follow DEP regulations. They have to follow the preserved farmland regulations because it is a preserved farm. So they have a lot of things that they have to do for this farm to make sure it's done right. Number one, when they bought the farm, Material Matters did a study. They took 3 different farms, the Howard farm. They thought it was right on the paperwork that this was not a good choice for many reasons. The biggest reason is there's a lot of sloping, which, with the runoff, the water that runs off of this, for when there's heavy rains, it goes out the back and into ponds, and which flows to Little Bushkill. Many, many things. One of the weird part was because where Megan lives and some of the folks, they received mail from Nazareth. They're in the Nazareth mailing, by the Nazareth Postal Service. But they're not Nazareth. They're not in Lower Nazareth. They're not anything to do with Nazareth. And I think it makes you feel like, oh, well, you have some ability to tell Nazareth or get in on their board or get involved. We can't do that. We don't live in Nazareth. We don't have anything to do with. We can go to the council meetings, which I've attended many. We've gone to almost we've gone to every Nazareth Borough Municipal Sewer meetings. There's one tonight at 7 o'clock. We go, we talk if we can, we listen because they have Material Matters there every week, every month. They talk about the Harrow Farm every month, what progress they've made, what they're at, where they're at with what their process is. They want to tear down the house. They want to tear down the buildings. They want to make it real pretty in the front, but then they want to put in, it has to be farmed a certain way. Well, they had the farmer tear up and till one of the fields that has never been done because it's so sloped. Was never a good idea. It wasn't in the previous farmer's conservation plan to till that field at all. Now this farmer, they changed the way they have it laid out and what they're having him do. So they think they're following whatever they want to do with the land. They have they're making their own conservation plans. From what I understand, it's all being reviewed. Well, they can do whatever they want tell the farmer they want him to do that, but whether it's a good thing to do or not, see, it's very confusing.
But with a preserved farm, I think you have to have a conservation plan that is approved by the Farmland Board.
Right, they've had one in place for years. My brother farmed that that farm for 50 years.
Yeah.
And at the point where it was sold to Nazareth, they had thought they'd let him do it, but then you have to spread this stuff, there's OSHA rules, there's there's special things that you have to do to spread it. The one thing is, it's so healthy that when they put it out, they have to put up signs on the property saying, access restricted, biosolids application, PAG08, the DEP paperwork that they have to post. They have to let all the people know 30 days in advance. They have to, or ahead of time. They have all kinds of things that they have to do to let the people know. This happens, this isn't just here. No. This is the entire United States. It's around the world. And it's affecting the ground. They're trying to prove, they work with Penn State. They're trying to prove that it's all fine and dandy. They can put it on the land and it's not going to harm anything. Well, at the point where there's so many chemicals nowadays. Years ago, you had a lot less chemicals. Now you have a lot of hazardous chemicals. It's in the sewage, okay? They process it. They say they process it. They dewater it. They can take out whatever. But it still has a lot of contaminants. It still has a lot of chemicals. They only have to test for like 8 or 9 heavy metals. So it's a problem everywhere. And we're the people that have to realize this is what we live with. I sent, and I've shared this with Tara and my neighbors, I there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania. I sent a letter, and the lady here helped compose it, and I sent a letter, an email to all 200, I didn't have 3 of them, all 200 state representatives. A letter about what's going on about this farm, and the fact that if you don't have legislation to change it, nothing's going to happen because it's a right to farm issue. It's considered something that they can use, it's beneficial for the land, for farmers. Well, but how much destruction is done in the meantime? So all 200 representatives, I didn't have 3 at the time, and all 50 state senators. I've contacted every one of them. They send an email back, say, well, you better get in touch with Ann Flood, you get in touch with this one, that one. I said, I already did that. I've been in touch with all of them. I'm waiting to have a meeting with Ann Flood, Lisa Boscala. We had a meeting with Mario Scavello a year and a half ago. We had a FaceTime with DEP.
Have you talked to Tara Probst?
No.
She's who took over for Mario Scavello. I think she would be inclined to hear you.
No, Lisa Boscola has his
Oh,
area.
but I mean, she's an,
Okay, yeah, I was told to get in touch with her. I haven't done that yet. But meanwhile, you know, I know this is tough. You've heard this before. And, but it's what we're dealing with, and we're trying to come up with an answer. And at the state level, and the weird part is, now in your paperwork, you're going to approve farmland that the county owns, that different farmers can farm. Those different farmers will pay a few dollars for the land. You can't afford to pay much. You don't make much. You got to put so much into fuel and fertilizer and your seed. The seed prices have gone through the roof. All your equipment, everything you have to do. With the gas prices, you're lucky you can even maybe make some money. There's so many farmers that, I grew up on a farm, you know, that they have to deal with. I'll cut this short. I appreciate your time very much. And I know, like I said, Megan spoke last month. I thought she did an excellent job. And anything that, you know, you folks deal with, it's just an awareness thing, okay? Thank you very much.
and I just want to let you know that I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I appreciate how frustrating this experience is. I know that you think in a perfect world that people would acknowledge that we shouldn't put chemicals and toxic bioaccumulates on property where we grow food that we eat. You know, in the newspaper, or the MCall and the Lehigh Valley Live, they just talked about the Lehigh River being one of the, like, on the 10 most endangered lists because of the developmental pressures from all the chemicals going into the river. And we think that we're not really immune to all this pollution here, but it really is an active participation of not only every level of government official, but also the people in the community doing the work to organize and to push legislators to do the right thing. So I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, and I'll help you in any way that I possibly can. And I'm hoping that Mark will be able to do something at some point in time with your community, and we can keep pushing this forward.
Yeah, well, Plainfield Township owns the property adjacent for the Farmers Fair. It's right there. They're involved big time. We have the community park across the street. It's Plainfield Township. It's our community. It serves, Megan said at the meeting last week, how many communities we're serving. Not just Plainfield, not just Penargil, Nazareth, Lower Nazareth, kids from all over. So the one thing, Nazareth Borough, because it's a sewer authority, they were allowed to buy it. But at the point where they wanted to, they're using it as a test site. They tested the soils before they bought it. They're going to test it. They have to test it every year if they get to put this on. We're going to fight. Hopefully, it'll never be able to get put on. They already own 6 or 7 farms in Pennsylvania that sewer authorities own for the purpose of putting sludge on. So it's a big issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Millie. Anybody else have any other comments? No. Okay, thank you so much. And with that, I believe we can adjourn the meeting. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was very